Welcome to our professional training series in divination, tarot, and astrology. The following training in astrology was developed for students that are going through the courses with the School of Our Divine Infinite Being. We wanted to make our training available to the general public here on YouTube, while also encouraging those interested in a career as a divination professional in astrology and tarot to check out our programs at www.divineinfinitebeing.com. We have post-graduation program assistance that you will not find anywhere else. This includes live video consultation technology, calendar booking, social share tools, affiliate program development, e-commerce, and the opportunity to take clients from the marketing efforts of our talented in-house staff. Again, you can find all of this at www.divineinfinitebeing.com. We hope you enjoy this training. Sponsored by AstrologyPro.com, the #1 platform for astrologers and tarot readers to operate their divination services. Aspects, the sacred geometry of the cosmos.
Aspects are the warp and weft of the astrological tapestry. They weave the disparate threads of planets into patterns of meaning, creating a living fabric of the psyche. Stephen Arroyo, Astrology, Psychology, and the Four Elements.
Astrological aspects are angular relationships between celestial bodies as they move across the 360-degree zodiac wheel. These angles are not merely mathematical, they are energetic conduits through which planetary intelligences communicate, creating patterns of resonance, contrast, and convergence. In the framework of the School of Our Divine Infinite Being, aspects are the language of the cosmos made audible to the soul. Each aspect is a living thread in the web of consciousness. A conjunction is a moment of merging or intensity, two archetypes occupying the same space, blending, fusing, or colliding. A square is a call to action, a tension point that demands growth through friction. A trine is a graceful alignment, harmonies that flow with little resistance, offering natural talent or blessing. An opposition holds the mirror of polarity, revealing the self through contrast and reflection. Sextiles, less obvious, are quiet invitations, subtle currents that open potential when met with intention.
The moment two planets form an aspect, they are engaged in conversation, transmitting their archetypal messages through a geometry that the soul instinctively understands. Liz Green, Relating, an astrological guide to living with others on a small planet.
These geometries are more than technical structures. They are spiritual signatures, encoded dialogue between archetypal forces. Aspects shape the terrain of incarnation, influencing how energies manifest in psyche, body, and behavior. To study aspects is to observe how spirit moves through time and space, how cosmic rhythms become internal experience, and how the soul engages its own unfolding through divine angles of intention. Ptolemy and the classical origins of aspect doctrine.
The Ptolemaic aspects reflect divisions of the circle that were thought to echo the mathematical harmonies of nature. They have retained their primacy because they resonate with an archetypal sense of proportion and balance. Deborah Holding, The Houses, Temples of the Sky. Ptolemy's classification of aspects is rooted in geometry, describing the musical and mathematical ratios that underpin the living cosmos. Bernadette Brady, Predictive Astrology.
The doctrine of aspects is not a modern invention. It is part of an ancient tradition of Hellenistic astrology. Claudius Ptolemy, writing in the 2nd century CE, outlined the geometry of aspects in his foundational text, Tetrabiblios. His system was grounded in the harmonic logic of the universe, drawing on philosophical frameworks from Plato, the Stoics, and the Egyptian mystery traditions. Ptolemy derived 5 major aspects as natural expressions of cosmic harmony, angular relationships that reflected the fundamental portions of universal order. The conjunction reflects unity, fusion, or intense convergence. The trine reflects ease and resonance through elemental likeness. The square represents dynamic tension and the necessity of growth through conflict. The sextile is a cooperative, supportive angle, an alliance of opportunity. The opposition signifies polar contrast, requiring balance and integration.
A square is spirit pressing against the boundaries of the known. A trine is spirit flowing through its own harmonious pathways. Each aspect gives us a clue to the cosmic dance within us. Robert Hand, Planets in Transit.
These angles were not chosen arbitrarily. They were derived from the divisions of the circle and tied to ancient mathematical and musical ratios that symbolized how spirit expresses through form. To study aspects is to inherit this divine geometry, a lineage of order and meaning inscribed in the stars. When we speak the angles, we encourage a language over 2,000 years old, crafted by sages who understood that to measure the heavens was also to measure the structure of the soul. Where you'll encounter aspects in astrology: natal, transits, and mundane. As you prepare to dive into the specific meanings of aspects like the conjunction, square, trine, and opposition, it's critical to first understand where and how aspects actually function in real-world astrological practice. While aspects are the geometric relationships between planets, their meanings shift depending on the context in which they appear. In astrology, there are three primary domains where aspects operate. Number 1, natal aspects, the architecture of your soul. The natal chart is a snapshot of the heavens at the exact moment and place of your birth. The aspects found in your natal chart describe the core energetic relationships between planets that are imprinted in your psyche. These aspects are permanent and represent inner structures of consciousness. They reflect the emotional tone, mental patterns, relationship tendencies, and soul-level themes that shape your unique life path. What natal aspects tell us? They show how different functions of your psyche are integrated or in tension. For example, a Moon-Saturn square might indicate early emotional inhibition or difficulty expressing vulnerability. A Venus-Jupiter trine can signal natural generosity, charm, and relational ease. They represent traits, struggles, and gifts that you carry with you throughout your life. They help define your default responses to life situations even before outside events affect you. Why they matter: natal aspects don't make things happen, they filter your experience of what happens. They describe the inner characteristics of your chart and how they interact, the harmonies, the tensions, the unresolved conflicts, the latent potentials. These inner relationships become the foundation upon which all future transits and progressions operate. Number 2, transiting aspects, the rhythm of time and external activation. Transits occur when moving, transiting planets form aspects to the fixed planets in your natal chart. These are temporary, often powerful influences that correspond to outer events and inner awakening. Transiting aspects reflect how the evolving movements of the cosmos are currently activating specific themes in your life. While natal aspects describe your structure, transiting aspects describe your timing. How transits work. A transit happens when a planet in the sky, example Mars, forms an aspect, square, trine, conjunction, etc. to one of your natal planets. The nature of the transit depends on the planets involved. Example, Saturn to Moon is very different from Venus to Mars. The aspect type, harsh versus harmonious, and the timing and duration. A Moon transit may last hours, while Pluto can affect you for years. What transiting aspects indicate? Shifts in mood, life events, opportunities, or challenges. an invitation to work with or confront the energies represented by the natal planet being aspected, cycles of growth, breakdown, initiation, or resolution. Example, a Saturn return transiting Saturn conjunct natal Saturn marks a critical restructuring of your life. A Uranus squared natal Sun might correlate with sudden changes in identity, career, or independence. Pro tip: you experience transits through the lens of your natal chart. If your natal Mercury is square Mars, then Mercury transits may also carry a sharper or more urgent tone. Number 3. Mundane aspects. Planetary forces at the collective level. Mundane astrology is the branch that applies astrological principles to world events, nations, and historical cycles. In this domain, aspects are analyzed in relation to the birth charts of nations, cities, constitutions, or wars, the transits affecting those charts, global planetary alignments between outer planets, especially Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. These aspects unfold across months, years, or even centuries as they set the tone of the times. Mundane aspects tend to mirror large-scale collective experiences, shifts in political power, cultural movements, revolutions, pandemics, technological leaps, and mass consciousness. Examples of mundane aspects at work: Saturn conjunct Pluto, 2020. Marked the onset of COVID-19 and widespread institutional collapse, mirroring authoritarian and restructuring forces. Uranus square Saturn, 2021. Reflected global tension between freedom versus control, innovation versus tradition. Neptune conjunct Jupiter, 2022. Symbolizing mass spiritual yearning, escapism, and misinformation waves. Why it matters to you. Even if you're not practicing political astrology, these configurations influence the cultural weather in which personal events unfold. Transits in your natal chart interact with collective cycles, meaning your personal story is never completely isolated. Summary: 1 language, 3 contexts.
Domain. Natal. What's aspecting what? Planet to planet within your birth chart. What it means. Permanent psychological makeup and archetypal blueprint. Domain. Transit. What's aspecting what? Planet in sky to planet in your birth chart. What it means. Temporary activation, timing, life cycles, external events. Domain. Mundane. What's aspecting what? Planets forming aspects globally or in a nation. Event chart. What it means. Collective mood, historical shifts, world stage events.
Final thought before we dive deeper. The same aspect type, like a square or trine, will operate differently depending on whether it is in your natal chart, part of a transit, or present in the larger societal fabric. When you learn the aspects in detail, try to imagine them as core relational dynamics, the angles of interaction between archetypes, and then apply that logic to the different scope of influence. Inner self, natal. Present life experience, transit. Collective evolution, mundane. This framework will make your understanding of aspects much more dynamic and accurate, and it will allow you to blend psychological, predictive, and societal readings seamlessly. The aspect mandala, the geometry of the soul.
The birth chart is a mandala, a geometric structure that reveals the pattern of the individual's destiny and essential being. Dean Rudhyar, The Astrology of Personality.
When all is seen together, the aspect in a chart form a mandala, a sacred geometric reflection of the soul's inner architecture. This mandala is not static. As transits move, the lines change. As progressions unfold, the geometry grows. But the natal aspect mandala remains the core structure through which consciousness unfolds. Each angle is a teaching, each pattern is a temple, each tension is an offering. To master aspects is to see life as a living web of divine angles, always shifting, always teaching, always pointing towards the center. Structure of the zodiac wheel.
The zodiac is a symbolic ordering of space, a cosmic map which helps us orient our consciousness within a meaningful universe. Liz Green, an astrological guide to living with others on a small planet.
Before aspects can be read or felt, one must understand the structure of the sky itself. The zodiac is a 360-degree circle, symbolizing totality, divided into 12 signs of 30 degrees each. Each sign occupies an exact location within this wheel and holds both spatial and symbolic meaning. Aries begins at 0 degrees, Taurus at 30 degrees, Gemini at 60 degrees, and so on until Pisces completes the circle at 360 degrees. To know where a planet resides is to know not only its sign, but its precise degree within the cosmic organism. This creates a coordinate system, mathematically and mystically, that allows for the precise observation of when one planet is forming a relationship with another. Degrees, signs, and angles are not abstract concepts. They are the architecture of incarnation. Integrating aspects with elemental balance.
No aspect can be interpreted outside of its elemental and modal context, since these qualities describe the very style and level at which the planetary functions operate. Liz Green, The Astrological World of Jung's Liber Novus.
Aspects are shaped not only by angular relationships, but also by the elemental nature, fire, earth, air, water, and the modalities, cardinal, fixed, mutable, of the signs involved. These layers determine how an aspect behaves, what kind of energy it carries, and how it tends to express in both inner psychology and external life. Without accounting for element and modality, the same aspect can be misread or generalized.
The four elements, fire, earth, air, and water, symbolize four basic modes of human energy flow and experience, and their distribution in the chart shows how the person's energies are balanced or imbalanced. Stephen Arroyo, Astrology, Psychology, and the Four Elements.
Each element modifies the tone of the aspect. A trine in fire signs, Aries, Leo, Sagittarius. Brings expressive, bold, and action-oriented synergy. It often supports leadership, risk-taking, and spontaneous creativity. The flow is extroverted and self-generating, but can also be impatient or scattered if ungrounded. Square in earth signs, example, Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn. Indicates slow forming friction, usually around control, structure, or material needs. The pressure builds through work, responsibility, or resistance to change. Resolution often comes through persistence, planning, or practical compromise. An opposition in air signs, example, Gemini, Libra, Aquarius. Creates tension through competing ideas, communication styles, or worldviews. These aspects may manifest as debate, ideological polarization, or relational dynamics based on intellectual contrast. Growth emerges from the integration of different mental models or philosophical positions. A sextile in water signs, example, Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces. Opens subtle emotional pathways. While gentle in appearance, these aspects create channels for deep healing, intuitive alignment, and silent cooperation. They often reveal themselves in moments of emotional trust or creative surrender. Elemental compatibility or conflict enhances or complicates the function of the aspect. Fire and air tend to energize and activate one another, resulting in fast, expressive, outward-moving dynamics. Earth and water support one another with steadiness and depth, creating grounding and emotional resilience. When fire meets water or earth meets air, tensions arise from energetic mismatch. One seeks action while the other requires reflection or logic. In any chart, the elemental composition of aspects adds nuance to interpretation. It clarifies whether an aspect will manifest as direct action, emotional sensitivity, conceptual tension, or material pressure. Recognizing this balance deepens not just technical accuracy, but the lived understanding of how planetary forces interact. The 5 major aspects core framework.
Conjunctions, sextiles, squares, trines, and oppositions form the backbone of aspect interpretation, symbolizing the core ways in which planetary functions connect and interact. Stephen Arroyo, Chart Interpretation Handbook.
Astrological teachings focus on 5 primary aspects, each of which reflect a natural division of the circle. These aspects correspond to geometrically pure intervals that reoccur throughout all of creation, seen in music, nature, and human relationships. In this way, they form the essential grammar of astrological interpretation. Conjunction 0 degrees. The merging or collision of 2 forces. This can result in amplification, synergy, or internal conflict depending on the planets involved. Sextile 60 degrees. A creative opening. This is the aspect of invitation, quiet opportunity, and small alignments that bring ease to our growth. Square 90 degrees. The tension of internal misalignment where will and circumstance collide. This friction forces evolution and resilience. Trine 120 degrees. The effortless harmony that arises when 2 elements share the same expression. Trines speak of gifts, ease, and often unconscious blessings. Opposition 180 degrees. The planetary mirror where the self sees itself through the other. This creates dynamic interplay and the need for balance and integration. These aspects are best understood not as fixed categories, but as forces that pulse with meaning depending on planetary archetypes, timing, and degree. What is an orb, measuring influence and intensity?
The orb describes the extent of a planet's field of influence, measuring whether the connection is growing stronger, reaching climax, or fading into memory. Liz Green, The Astrological World of Jung's Liber Novus.
An orb is the allowable range of degrees by which 2 planets can deviate from an exact aspect and still be considered actively interacting. While aspects are defined by fixed angles, example 90 degrees for a square or 120 degrees for a trine, the orb introduces a range of influence, measuring how close or how far the planets can be while maintaining energetic connection. This margin reveals whether a planetary relationship is building, peaking, or fading. Orbs by planet, adjusting for luminosity and mass. Not all planets are equal in the intensity or breadth in their energetic field. Larger, slower planets tend to require tighter orbs, while the Sun and Moon radiate wider influence. Here's a quick table to give you some clarity. Planets are on the left and the suggested orb range is on the right. Sun and Moon 6 to 10 degrees, Mercury Venus 4 to 6 degrees, Mars 4 to 6 degrees, Jupiter Saturn 3 to 5 degrees, Uranus Neptune Pluto 2 to 4 degrees, lunar nodes 4 to 6 degrees, progressed planets 1 to 2 degrees. Training your intuition alongside technical accuracy is key. An exact aspect with Pluto at 1 degree may be more powerful than a 5-degree orb trine between Venus and Jupiter. Sensitivity matters more than default rules. Tight versus wide orbs.
The orb is the range within which an aspect is considered operative. The closer the orb, the more powerful the aspect. Robert Hand, Horoscope Symbols.
The width of an orb significantly affects how strongly an aspect operates in the chart. A tight orb indicates a dominant force, intense, clear, and often core to the individual's character or experience. A wide orb may still influence events or temperaments, but tends to be more subtle, environmental, or dormant unless activated. Tight orbs, 0 to 2 degrees. Definition: aspects within 0 to 2 degree range of exactness. Impact: highly concentrated and unmistakable in expression. These aspects often reveal core themes that demand attention or define the individual's temperament. Interpretation: expect this energy to be persistent, visible in both behavior and life events, and deeply woven into identity. Example: a Mars-Saturn square at 1 degree might indicate lifelong lessons around discipline, frustration, or perseverance, central to life direction. Moderate orbs, 3 to 6 degrees. Definition: aspects within a moderate range of separation from exactness. Impact: still active and influential, particularly when reinforced by other chart factors, example, angular house placements, rulerships, dispositorship. Interpretation: these aspects reflect patterns that shape life structure and personal response, though they may fluctuate in visibility depending on life phase or external triggers. Example, a 4-degree Mercury-Uranus trine might represent intermittent flashes of originality and sudden insight, especially when stimulated by transit. Wide orbs, 7 to 10 degrees. Definition: aspects at the far end of acceptable range, only used with major aspects and influential bodies like the Sun and the Moon. Impact: operates more like a subtle background of latent tendency, may shape the emotional climate or inherited traits rather than drive conscious behavior. Interpretation: these aspects are often unconscious, ancestral, or dormant, coming into sharp focus only when echoed by progressions, transits, or life experience. Example, a 9-degree Venus-Neptune opposition may not be strongly felt until a Neptune transit reactivates that tension through idealism, disillusionment, or romantic projection. Orb types by motion, applying exact and separating aspects. The motion of an aspect, whether the planets are moving toward or away from the exact contact, dramatically alters how it functions in the chart. Every aspect has a life cycle. It builds, peaks, and fades. Understanding this progression allows astrologers to assess timing, urgency, and psychological intensity within both natal and transit charts. Number 1. Applying aspects, energy in ascent. An applying aspect occurs when the faster moving planet is approaching exact degree contact with the slower moving planet. This represents an incoming energetic charge, a process that is not yet complete but is in motion. Interpretations in natal charts indicates potential that is still maturing, often associated with future development, anticipation, or tension. Suggests internalized pressure or momentum, something building within the personality or life structure. Can feel restless or unresolved until the individual consciously integrates it. In predictive work, transits or progressions, applying aspects are activating forces. They initiate events, emotions, or realizations. Strong indicators of upcoming shifts. They prepare the ground for external manifestation. If supported by additional timing techniques, example solar arc, or perfections, applying aspects can pinpoint emerging opportunities or crisis. Key quality: becoming. The energy is increasing in intensity, often bringing challenge, motivation, or creative pressure. Number 2, exact aspects, the peak moment. An exact aspect is when two planets are at the same degree of the defined aspect angle, example, exactly 90 degrees apart for a square. Interpretations in natal charts. These aspects are core features of the individual psyche or destiny. They are unavoidable in expression, either as natural talents, central struggles, or defining life themes. They leave a strong imprint on perception, identity, or experience. In predictive work, exact aspects indicate culmination. This is the moment when a process reaches visibility or decision. Events triggered at exact aspects are often memorable, externalized, or emotionally charged. This is the time when energy peaks, revealing the fullest form of the aspect's expression. Key quality, expression. The energy is fully active and has tangible impact. There is no more buildup, the result is being lived. Number 3. Separating aspects, echoes of what has passed. A separating aspect occurs when the faster moving planet has passed exact contact and is now moving away from the slower moving planet. The energetic link is diminishing, though not entirely gone. Interpretation in natal charts suggests energies or experiences that are already internalized or processed. Often represents past life imprints, ancestral patterns, or early developmental influences. The energy of the aspect is still present but functions more like a habit, reflex, or echo rather than an active drive. These aspects may feel more familiar, integrated, or taken for granted. In predictive work, separating aspects indicate closure or aftermath. They can point to a resolution phase, cleanup process, or emotional reflection after a turning point. Action may already have occurred. The emphasis is now on integration or consequence. Key quality, release. The energy is moving away, creating space for reflection, detachment, or stabilization. Practical considerations for using orbs. Context is key. Tighter orbs gain prominence, but wider orbs may still hold weight if reinforced by house rulership, angularity, or repetition. Applied discernment. Not all close angles create visible effects. Consider planetary dignity, essential strength, and chart emphasis. Visual training. Learning to see orbs by sight, without constant degree checking, develops interpretive fluency over time. Predictive accuracy. In timing techniques, use tighter orbs 1 to 2 degrees to improve precision and forecast reliability. Visual calculation. How to locate a planet.
Eventually, the astrologer begins to see the chart as a whole, not as a series of separate parts. The degrees and aspects begin to speak on their own. What was once calculation becomes perception. Howard Sass Portis, The 12 Houses, Exploring the Houses of the Horoscope.
To fluently read a chart, one must calculate planetary degrees quickly and translate them into meaningful positions. For example, if Mars is at 134 degrees, what does that mean? Aries starts at 0 degrees, Taurus at 30 degrees, Gemini at 60 degrees, Cancer at 90 degrees, Leo at 120 degrees. Therefore, Mars at 134 degrees means Leo 14 degrees. Now place Venus at 104 degrees, Cancer 14 degrees. The angular difference is 30 degrees, which is not a major aspect. But if Venus were at 74 degrees, Gemini 14 degrees, Mars and Venus would be 60 degrees apart, a perfect sextile. This kind of visual and numerical fluency allows astrologers to move beyond reliance on software and into embodied intuitive understanding. Being able to see the degrees is like hearing musical intervals. You begin to feel the aspect, not just calculate it. Speaking the language of the aspects.
The astrologer is like a translator, converting planetary patterns into language that can be understood and acted upon. Howard Sass Portis, The 12 Houses.
Astrology is not only a contemplative study of symbols, it is also a spoken art. Aspects, in particular, form the grammar and syntax of the celestial language. For astrology to become living knowledge, the practitioner must learn to speak aspects aloud, translating planetary geometry into words that are timely, precise, and resonate with lived experience. Advanced interpretation requires more than recognizing configurations. It demands the ability to combine planet, aspect, sign, and timing into meaningful statements. This verbal fluency allows astrologers to guide others, interpret transits, or describe natal dynamics with both technical accuracy and emotional clarity. Examples of fluent aspect expression. With Mars square Saturn exact tomorrow, you might feel blocked or delayed, but this pressure is asking for disciplined momentum. Slow effort will build lasting strength. Venus is trining Neptune right now. There's an opening for beauty, enchantment, and subtle connection. Let your intuition soften and your expectations in love. That Mercury-Pluto opposition just passed. Has a recent conversation uncovered something buried or transformative? You might still be integrating what came to light. In these phrases, we see four essential components. The planetary characteristics, example, Mars and Saturn. The aspect relationship, example, square, trine, opposition. The timing, applying, exact, separating. The psychological or circumstantial translation. To master this skill is to animate the chart, to speak as though the planets are living forces moving through daily life. Mars enters the room as a challenge. Neptune weaves a veil. Saturn demands order. Pluto excavates. When spoken well, aspects shift from abstract geometry into dynamic conversation between soul and sky. Fluent astrologers speak aspects as if narrating a myth in real time. Their words do not merely interpret, they embody the chart and invite the listener to experience planetary energies as events unfolding in consciousness. Degrees as time, the temporal dimensions of aspects.
Every degree of the zodiac is a reservoir of potential. As a planet moves through these degrees, it stirs energies that are latent in time, evoking moments that act as catalysts. Dane Rudyard, The Astrology of Transformation, 1980.
Degrees in astrology are more than spatial measurements between planets. They are temporal markers reflecting the unfolding of energy over time. Every chart is not only a map of the sky, but also a clock of becoming. The closer a planet moves to an exact aspect by degree, the more intense the energetic contact becomes. Aspects reveal not just what is happening, but when and for how long it will express. The temporal dynamics of aspects depend on planetary speed, orb width, and angular motion. A fast-moving planet like the Moon may square another planet for only 6 to 12 hours, creating an emotional storm that passes quickly but with sharp impact. A slow-moving outer planet like Saturn may oppose a natal planet for several weeks to months, defining an entire phase of restructuring, maturity, or confrontation. Transitioning Pluto aspects can remain active for years, often indicating deep, irreversible transformation that unfolds through multiple passes, due to retrogrades. Understanding degrees as time allows astrologers to read a chart not only as a snapshot, but as a living sequence of energetic waves.
Astrology is the science of time, not merely clock time, but of kairos, those moments of significant meaning when inner and outer events converge. Antero Ali, Astrologic, The Astrological Psychology Workbook, 1996.
The duration of an aspect's influence is relative to how many degrees separate the planets and how fast they are moving. A 3-degree orb in a moon aspect will resolve quickly. The same orb between Saturn and Neptune could span months or a year. To read aspects is to enter into the art of timing, not merely in terms of chronos, linear, measurable time, but through the lens of kairos, sacred timing, the opportune moment when something meaningful is ready to unfold. Kairos acts as the gate to Aeon, opening the way to the eternal dimension that holds all moments within its boundless embrace. In this light, astrologers serve as temporal interpreters, reading cycles not only for insight but for alignment with natural timing. By tracking degrees, one learns to anticipate thresholds, prepare for inner transitions, and recognize the opening and closing of doors not seen by the ordinary eye. Natal, transit, and progressed aspects. Astrological aspects operate across multiple layers of time. While they follow the same geometric principles, their function, intensity, and duration differ greatly depending on whether they are natal, transiting, or progressed. Understanding this layered structure allows astrologers to track the self across static karmic imprints, real-time events, and evolving psychological shifts. Natal aspects, the permanent blueprint.
The natal chart is not a prison, but it is a map. The aspects at birth are the symbolic DNA of the psyche, patterns that can be transformed, but rarely erased. Liz Green, Dynamics of the Unconscious, Seminar Series, 1986.
Definition: aspects between planets at the moment of birth. Nature: fixed, lifelong configurations. They define your core personality dynamics, karmic inheritances, strengths, and repeated life themes. Impact: operate continuously in background behavior and long-term identity. Cannot be changed, but can be refined and consciously worked with over time. Example: a natal Moon-Saturn square may reflect emotional restraint or early deprivation that becomes a long-term theme of maturity and emotional mastery. Number 2, transit aspects, real-time activation.
Transits stir the natal chart into action. They are like cosmic weather fronts. Some bring storms, others bring sunshine, but all pass in time. Robert Hand, Planets in Transit, 1976.
Definition: aspects formed by current transiting planets to natal planets. Nature: temporary, time-bound activations that trigger events, emotional states, or external circumstances. Impact: bring the natal potential into active expression, often through crises, opportunity, pressure, or awakening. Useful for timing decisions, identifying high-energy periods, or navigating disruptions and breakthroughs. Duration depends on the speed of the transiting planet. The Moon is hours, Mars 2 to 3 days, Jupiter 1 to 2 weeks, Pluto months to years with retrogrades. Example: a transit of Mars square natal Saturn might trigger frustration, blocked momentum, or the need for disciplined action during a 2 to 3 day window. Number 3, progressed aspects, symbolic evolution.
Progressions are the inner tides of growth. They do not describe outer events so much as the slow unfolding of the soul's seasons. Stephen Forrest, The Inner Sky, 1984.
Definition: aspects formed between progressed planets or between a progressed planet and a natal one using symbolic time. Example: 1 day equals 1 year. Nature: slow-moving and internally driven, often marking periods of emotional, spiritual, or psychological maturation. Impact: not always externally visible, but powerful for describing subtle shifts in values, desires, perception, and inner development. These aspects often represent new narratives emerging from within, especially in midlife and later phases. Duration: can remain active for months or years, depending on the planets involved. Example: a progressed Venus trine Jupiter may usher in a year-long phase of increased optimism, artistic growth, or ease in relationships, even without external drama. Aspect patterns, sacred architecture in the sky.
Grand trines, T-squares, yods. All these formations are not just technical details. They are signatures of the soul's architecture, signposts of the growth journey. Dane Rudhyar, The Astrology of Personality.
Aspect patterns are formed when 3 or more planets are geometrically connected through major aspects: conjunction, square, trine, opposition, sextile. These formations create recognizable configurations such as T-squares, grand trines, yods, and mystic rectangles. They operate like sacred mandalas within the chart. They are not incidental or decorative, they are architectures of energy, encoding behavioral circuits, repeating inner dialogues and spiritual instructions across a lifetime. The meaning and power of aspect patterns. These patterns represent non-linear intelligence, a way the psyche organizes its energetic functions through rhythm, symmetry, and tension. Each pattern has a signature flow of energy. Some operate with high tension and urgency, others flow with ease and quiet power. They are often psychologically dominant, revealing default behavior loops, emotional tendencies, coping strategies, and karmic complexes. They form the sacred geometry of the chart, encoding messages from soul to self about where transformation, mastery, or expression is needed. Why they matter. Focused impact. These patterns magnify specific planetary themes. For example, a T-square with Mars at the apex will intensify conflict, assertion, and pressure towards action. Energetic circuits. The geometry reflects movement, where energy enters, where it gets stuck, and how it seeks resolution. Spiritual blueprint. Each pattern holds a lesson or invitation. Some show inner conflict, example, Grand Cross. Others reveal inherent grace or gifts, example, Grand Trine. Repetition and reoccurrence. These dynamics show up again and again across life stages, offering multiple chances to evolve or refine them. Examples of aspect patterns. T-square. A triangle of two planets in opposition, both squaring a third planet, the apex. This pattern creates relentless internal pressure that demands focused growth through the apex planet. Grand Trine. Three planets in the same element, example, fire, forming trines with one another. This reflects ease, harmony, and innate gifts, but may also lead to complacency if not activated. Yod, finger of God. Two planets in sextile, both quincunx, a third apex planet. This is a faded, awkward pattern requiring redirection and spiritual refinement. Mystic rectangle. Two oppositions with sextiles and trines linking the four planets. Balance polarity with flow, a potential for sacred integration. The T-square, dynamic tension and release.
A T-square is a pattern of enormous tension and dynamic drive. It shows the need for conscious effort to integrate conflicting energies, but when worked through, it becomes a tremendous source of strength. Howard Sass-Portis, The 12 Houses, 1985.
The T-square is a forceful and commonly occurring aspect pattern, created when two planets are in opposition 180 degrees and both form a square 90 degrees to a third planet, forming a triangular structure that resembles a capital T on the chart. This pattern channels concentrated tension into a single apex planet, making it a crucial point of pressure, adaptation, and growth. While often experienced as challenging or relentless, the T-square becomes a catalyst for mastery and self-awareness when engaged consciously. Core components of a T-square. Opposition axis 180 degrees. Creates tension between two polar forces. This axis highlights duality, competing values, conflicting drives, or relationship struggles. Square angles 90 degrees. Each planet in opposition squares a third, apex planet, creating friction that demands attention and restructuring. Apex planet. The focal point of the pattern. This planet is under constant pressure, often experienced as a psychological burden or a place of overcompensation. It also becomes the engine of development. Resolution point. The point opposite the apex, often in an empty sign and house, is called the missing leg. It represents the balancing force, the behavior, perspective, or environment that can ease the pattern's tension. Energetics of the T-square. Internal pressure. This pattern creates a closed loop of unresolved tension, often felt as internalized urgency or drive. The energy builds until it forces a breakthrough or reaction. Karmic themes. The T-square often encodes past life dynamics, inherited family scripts, or early life experiences that demand active healing and engagement. Catalyst for growth. Although uncomfortable, the T-square pushes evolution. It fuels ambition, innovation, and resilience. People with T-squares are rarely passive. They are driven to solve or confront the core issue. Potential for mastery. If the energy is directed with awareness, the apex planet becomes a source of focus, power, and transformation. Example, T-square involving Moon in Cancer, the square, Mars in Libra, the opposition, and Pluto in Capricorn, square apex. In this pattern, Pluto becomes the apex, absorbing emotional volatility, Moon, and conflict in action or assertion, Mars. The person may feel intense internal power struggles or compulsive control tendencies. The resolution point in Cancer's opposite sign, Cancer's polarity, Capricorn, may point towards emotional regulation, responsibility, and rootedness in a healing path. Interpretive keys. Ask, where is the pressure focused? Apex. Where is it missing? Resolution point. Observe, are the signs involved cardinal, fixed, or mutable? This changes how pressure manifests, action, resistance, or change. Advise, T-squares are not blocks, they are compressed energy systems. Encourage strategies of integration, releasing perfectionism, and seeking the resolution sign as a compass. The Grand Trine, harmony, talent, and flow.
A grand trine is like a talent for music. You may be born with it, but if you don't play the instrument, no one will hear the song. Stephen Forrest, The Inner Sky, 1984.
The Grand Trine is a graceful and symmetrical aspect pattern formed when three planets are each 120 degrees apart, creating an equilateral triangle within the natal chart. All three planets are located in signs of the same element, fire, earth, air, or water, allowing their energies to flow naturally without obstruction. This formation is often seen as a symbol of inner ease, creative intelligence, or spiritual gift. It represents energies that are harmonized, consistent, and often instinctual. Key characteristics of the Grand Trine. Elemental unity. All planets share a common element. Fire inspires passion, confidence, and creative force. Earth grounds material mastery, endurance, and stability. Air encourages intellectual fluency, communication, and social flow. Water deepens emotional intelligence, sensitivity, and psychic openness. Energetic flow. The triangle forms a closed loop of continuous energy, enabling effortless connection between the planets. This often manifests as natural talent, internal peace, or spiritual attunement. Potential for grace or stagnation. The energy is stable and reliable, but can become self-contained, inert, or underutilized. Without external pressure like a square or opposition, the Grand Trine can lack activation. It may feel like a latent gift that's too easy to notice. Spiritual and psychological meaning. Divine inheritance. Many traditions view the Grand Trine as an energetic legacy, a reward for prior life efforts or karmic alignment. It carries the resonance of natural coherence, as if the soul remembers how to move in harmony. Unconscious strength. Because it operates so smoothly, those with Grand Trines may not immediately recognize their gifts. They may assume everyone has the same internal stability or ease in that domain. Path to mastery. When consciously harnessed, the Grand Trine becomes a powerful tool for growth and expression. It can be a spiritual foundation from which more dynamic or challenging aspects can evolve. Example, Grand Trine in Earth, Venus in Taurus Trine, Saturn in Virgo Trine, Pluto in Capricorn Trine. This pattern may grant natural artistic grounding, Venus Taurus, disciplined craftsmanship, Saturn Virgo, and deep transformational focus, Pluto Capricorn. The individual could excel in design, healing, or building systems that last, but may also remain comfortable unless external tensions challenge growth. Interpretive advice. Identify activation. Are other aspects like oppositions or squares present that push the grand trine into action? Encourage engagement. The grand trine works best when intentionally applied through projects, service, creation, or spiritual work. Watch for passivity. Without conscious attention, the pattern may lead to underachievement or detachment from life's friction-based learning curves. The Yod, the finger of God.
The Yod, often referred to as the finger of God, creates a persistent sense that something must be done, though one may not know what or how. It is an aspect pattern of spiritual restlessness and redirection. Bernadette Brady, The Eagle and the Lark, 1992.
The Yod, often referred to as the finger of God, is a rare and potent aspect pattern formed when two planets are in sextile 60 degrees and both form a quincunx 150 degrees to a third apex planet. This creates a tall, narrow isosceles triangle in the chart that focuses energetic pressure on a single point. The Yod is not a pattern of ease, it is a configuration of spiritual adjustment, symbolic initiation, and karmic redirection. Its geometry is both unstable and dynamic, compelling the native to realign with purpose, often without clear instructions. Structural breakdown. Two sextile planets, 60 degrees. These planets form a base of potential or latent talent. They are cooperative but passive until activated by the apex. Apex planet, quincunx, 150 degrees to both. The focal point of the pattern, it absorbs indirect and awkward energy from both sides. This planet becomes the site of discomfort, transformation, and eventual awakening. No opposition or trine. Unlike the grand trine or T-square, the Yod offers no easy outlet. It forces internal growth through discomfort and constant adjustment. Energetic dynamics. Quincunx aspect. This 150-degree angle is often described as incompatible but connected. It links signs that don't share element, modality, or polarity, creating dissonance and uncertainty. The Yod is driven by this mismatch. It creates creative unease. Tension without clarity. The energy in a Yod builds gradually and silently. Those with this configuration may feel chronic inner pressure, an undefined sense that something important must be done, but the path or purpose feels obscured. Delayed activation. The Yod often does not express fully early in life. It matures throughout time, often triggered by transits, progressions, or life crises that sharpen the apex planet's role. Spiritual significance. Density signature. The Yod is often experienced as a soul assignment, a task or direction that the individual did not choose but must eventually embrace. The call and the confusion. Those with Yods often report feeling called, but struggle with defining what they are being called to do. The Yod demands listening, surrender, and spiritual refinement. The release point. Eventually, the tension can accumulate to a point of choice, breakthrough, or redirection, when the internal discomfort clarifies into a powerful sense of purpose. Example, Yod pattern. Mercury in Aquarius, sextile Neptune in Sagittarius. Both quincunx Mars in Cancer, apex. This configuration might express as a deeply imaginative and idealistic mind, Mercury-Neptune, channeled towards action, Mars, in ways that feel emotionally destabilizing or misunderstood. Over time, the person may find themselves in a role of spiritual leadership, healing, or advocacy, only after struggling with internal contradiction or unclear motivation. Interpretive keys. Identify the apex planet. This is the site of destiny, discomfort, and eventual transformation. Observe the sextile base. These planets offer tools or hidden gifts that may assist the apex in expression, but they are not directly supportive without conscious integration. Look for timing triggers. Pay attention to transits or progressions to the apex planet. They often activate the purpose behind the Yod. The mystic rectangle and kite. Subtle harmony. Not all aspect patterns emerge from conflict. Some reflect a refined geometry of inner synthesis, expressing complex balance and layered integration. Among these are the mystic rectangle and the kite, two powerful but often underappreciated formations that point towards spiritual maturity, creative alignment, and subtle evolution.
The mystic rectangle is a pattern of subtle harmony born from oppositional contrast. It holds within it the paradox of peace through polarity, opposing forces that, rather than fight, cooperate through the mediation of flow. Sue Tompkins. Aspects in Astrology, 1993.
These patterns are not always loud in their efforts, but they indicate the potential for grace under pressure and the harmonization of opposites within the psyche. The mystic rectangle, balanced opposition in sacred container. Structure, formed by two oppositions at 180 degrees. These oppositions are connected by two trines, 120 degrees, and two sextiles at 60 degrees. The result is a rectangular shape with gentle symmetry and energetic flow. Energetic nature. The oppositions introduce dynamic contrast, tension, and mirroring. The trines and sextiles provide ease, receptivity, and supportive flow between the opposite forces. This creates a self-regulating container where tension is not suppressed but alchemized into insight. Interpretation often shows emotional intelligence, spiritual balance, and a capacity to hold multiple perspectives. These individuals can act as mediators, counselors, or integrators, translating conflict into harmony. The pattern works best when the oppositions are not avoided but used as engines of awareness. Challenge. Without conscious effort, the energy may remain dormant or overly internalized. It requires engagement and reflection to activate its full potential. The kite pattern, a trine given direction. Structure. A grand trine is present, 3 planets in a closed 120-degree triangle, all in the same element. A 4th planet opposes one of the grand trine points, forming a sextile to the other 2. Visually, it looks like a kite, with the opposition forming the spine and the trine sextiles forming the wings. Energetic nature. The grand trine provides natural gifts, ease, and talent. The opposition injects tension, motivation, and drive, serving as a launch mechanism that pushes the individual towards actualizing the grand trine's latent potential. Interpretation suggests a person with refined abilities who may face a central life challenge or polarity through the opposition that forces growth and propels forward movement. The sextiles facilitate access to creative solutions, networks, or insights that support this propulsion, often seen in charts of gifted individuals who must face internal struggles or relational tensions to activate their greatness. Spiritual message. Unlike the passive harmony of a pure grand trine, the kite requires flight. It points towards a higher path where tension becomes the engine for soulful direction. Summary insights. The pattern, mystic rectangle, core energy, balanced inner duality, purpose, alchemal integration. The pattern, kite, the core energy, gift under pressure, the purpose, actualization of soul potential. These patterns signify not just personality structures, but refined vehicles of evolution. They are quietly powerful, less dramatic than the T-square or the Yod, but often longer lasting in impact. They support the fusion of soul gifts with lived experience, enabling inner wholeness and outer expression. Minor aspects, subtle threads of influence.
Minor aspects are like the harmonics in music, subtle overtones that refine the primary structure. They add complexity and richness to the personality if you know how to listen. Stephen Forrest, The Inner Sky, 1984.
While not as central as the 5 major aspects, minor aspects reveal fine-grained patterns and background influences in a chart. They're often overlooked in standard readings, but for those who wish to dive deeply into their natal blueprint, these subtle geometries offer refined psychological and spiritual insights. Quincunx, 150 degrees. Indicates tension between mismatched signs, calls for adjustment and synthesis. Semi-sextile, 30 degrees. suggest faint links or unconscious habits that operate just below awareness. Semi-square, 45 degrees. Sesquiquadrate, 135 degrees. Low-grade friction that can lead to gradual shifts or internal refinements over time. Quintile, 72 degrees, and biquintile, 144 degrees. Signify creative intelligence, talent, and unique expressions, often connected to artistry, innovation, or mystical design. These aspects usually show up in subtle ways rather than obvious ones. They may not play a major role in most chart readings, but for those exploring their chart in greater depth, especially when looking at hidden talents, quiet inner tensions, or long-term growth patterns, minor aspects can offer valuable insights that add depth and clarity to the overall interpretation. Karmic and dharmic expressions of aspects. In Western tropical astrology, aspects are more than just angular relationships between planets. They are active gateways through which the soul's karmic past and dharmic path are expressed. Every angle formed between celestial bodies carries a distinct energetic charge. Some represent unresolved patterns and inner tensions, while others reveal areas of innate talent, spiritual memory, or potential fulfillment.
Aspects are the dynamic expression of the planetary archetypes in relationship. They reveal the soul's challenges, gifts, and evolutionary intentions in this lifetime. Jeffrey Wolf Green, Pluto, The Evolutionary Journey of the Soul, 1985.
We have another training that covers the greater chart reading for karma and dharma outside of the aspects, and we highly suggest watching that video. This interpretive model allows us to view astrology not merely as personality profiling, but as a living map of soul evolution, where aspects become the bridges between what must be reconciled, karma, and what must be embodied, dharma. Aspect types and their karmic dharmic functions. Squares, 90 degrees. Represents karmic refinement. These aspects arise from unfinished work or misalignments carried from earlier phases of soul experience. They create internal frictions that demand conscious action, discipline, and restructuring. Squares are pressure points. They provoke effort and challenge, but are necessary for soul development and integration. Trines, 120 degrees. Indicate dharmic ease and memory. These aspects connect energies that have worked together harmoniously in previous cycles. The trine reveals areas of natural flow and grace, gifts that often feel intuitive or familiar. However, the potential must be actively embodied to bear fruit. Without conscious use, trines can lead to stagnation or complacency. Oppositions, 180 degrees. Signifies soul polarity and the need for balance. This aspect brings two contrasting forces into full view, asking for recognition of duality and the commitment to integration. Oppositions often reflect deep relational karma, mirrors that show the self through the other. Resolution comes not through denial of difference, but through synthesis and maturity. Conjunctions, 0 degrees. Act as fusion points where karma and dharma converge. The conjunction blends two planetary energies into one concentrated force. Depending on the planets involved and the surrounding chart, this can either amplify unresolved karmic intensities or offer a powerful gateway for dharmic action. It represents a starting point, a place of emergence, encoding both challenge and potential. Interpreting aspects as a spiritual system. By applying the karmic dharmic framework within the Western tropical system, astrologers gain a deeper understanding of how planetary aspects reflect the soul's journey through time. Squares and oppositions are not bad, they are invitations to growth. Trines and sextiles are not easy wins, they are sacred trusts that must be lived with intention. Seen this way, aspects become part of a soul-based language of guidance. They show where the soul is repeating old patterns or healing old wounds, karma. They point towards the qualities and expressions that allow the individual to move forward in alignment with their purpose, dharma. When interpreted with clarity and depth, aspects become spiritual indicators, guiding individuals towards self-awareness, fulfillment, and alignment with the evolutionary arc of their being. Interpreting aspect patterns in chart readings.
Planets, locked in patterns, are dancing partners, not soloists. They collaborate, challenge, support, and refine one another as part of a continuous process of development. Liz Green, Relating, an astrological guide to living with others on a small planet. Aspect patterns give structure and tone to a chart. They are not random, they are purposeful maps of how energy is woven through the personality. Stephen Arroyo, Chart Interpretation Handbook.
When reading a natal or transit chart, aspect patterns must be approached holistically. Rather than isolating individual aspects, the astrologer should interpret the pattern as an integrated energetic system. Each pattern, whether a T-square, grand trine, yod, or mystic rectangle, functions as a unified field, where the involved planets interact dynamically to express a core psychological or spiritual narrative.
The focal planet in an aspect pattern acts as the point of catharsis or breakthrough, channeling the complex forces of the configuration toward a single expression. Robert Hand, Planets in Transit.
Core principles of interpretation. Number 1. Identify the focal point. Begin by locating the apex planet or point of tension. In patterns like the T-square or the yod, this planet carries the pressure and defines the transformational theme. Number 2. Classify aspect types. Distinguish whether the angles are primarily dynamic, square, opposition, quincunx, or harmonic, trine, sextile. This defines whether the pattern functions through challenge and growth or through ease and flow. Number 3. Analyze signs and houses. Study the signs and houses involved to understand where in life the pattern plays out, houses, and how it expresses itself, signs. The houses show the domain of action, the sign shows the mode of behavior. Number 4. Scan for precision and weight. Focus on aspects that are tightest in orb within 1 to 2 degrees and involving key planets, especially the Sun, Moon, Ascendant Ruler, Chart Ruler, or Midheaven. These carry the most influence in defining life's themes and current activations. Number 5. Observe repetition and geometry. If a single planet is involved in multiple aspects of the same type, example several squares or quincunxes, it suggests a concentrated focus on karmic task. Also look for symmetry in structure. T-squares, kites, grand crosses, these shape the chart's architecture and point to higher order integration or complexity. Number 6. Weigh conflict versus harmony. Assess whether the chart contains more hard aspects, square, opposition, or soft aspects, trine, sextile. Charts heavy in squares and oppositions tend to reflect tension, conflict, and karmic drive, whereas those with many trines and sextiles often show talent, flow, or spiritual grace. Both need context. Flow without tension can stagnate. Conflict without balance can fracture. Number 7. Synthesize the pattern's core meaning. Once the structural and symbolic components are identified, translate the pattern into a coherent story. The goal is not just technical accuracy, but narrative integration, describing how the aspects express a central developmental path. Use clear metaphoric language when appropriate. This grand trine reflects the innate flow of your creativity. It forms the inner structure of your resilience. This T-square is the crucible that forces growth. You are shaped through friction. This yod suggests a life path that emerges through unexpected adjustments and inner clarity over time. By combining geometric structure, angular meaning, planetary function, and narrative clarity, the astrologer can transform aspects from technical fragments into a living, unified system, one that speaks to the deeper purpose and unfolding of the client's life. Synastry aspects when two souls touch.
Synastry shows where one person's psyche touches another's. These planetary interchanges may produce harmony or conflict, but they always invite deeper understanding of the self through the relationship. Liz Green, Relating, an astrological guide to living with others on a small planet, 1977.
Synastry is the comparative study of two natal charts to understand the energetic connection between individuals. In astrology, this is how we measure how souls resonate, clash, or evolve together. Aspects between charts reveal how one person's planetary energies activate, support, or challenge in others, offering insight into both the spiritual contract and the emotional patterns within the relationship. Synastry does not determine compatibility in a simplistic sense. Instead, it highlights the points of karmic intersection and the growth pathways shared between two people. Whether romantic, familial, or collaborative, synastry maps the energetic dialogue between souls. Key types of synastry aspects. Conjunction, 0 degrees, a powerful merging of planetary energies. Can feel faded, intense, or deeply magnetic. May lead to fusion or enmeshment depending on the planets involved. Trines and sextiles, 120 degrees and 60 degrees. Indicate natural flow, shared values, or emotional and intellectual ease. Often found in long-term friendships and relationships that feel effortless. These aspects stabilize a connection and promote mutual support. Squares and oppositions, 90 degrees to 180 degrees. Reflect tension, projection, or unresolved karma. These are often catalysts for transformation. They mirror what each person must confront within themselves. May trigger friction, but also deepen intimacy through conscious work. Double whammies. Occur when the same aspect is present in both directions. Example, A's moon trines B's Venus, and B's moon trines A's Venus. These reinforce the theme of the aspect, creating mirrored influence that feel mutual and profound. Interpretive insight. Synastry is not a checklist of good or bad aspects, it is a map of shared evolution. Some relationships are meant to bring ease, while others are meant to awaken, challenge, or heal. The key is recognizing the purpose of the connection, not just its comfort level. When viewed spiritually, synastry aspects show where two people are aligned in dharma, where karma must be worked through together, where the soul invites transformation through another. In essence, synastry aspects mark the point where souls touch, whether gently, powerfully, or provocatively, always with the potential for growth and deeper self-recognition. Composite aspects, the soul of a relationship.
A composite chart describes the relationship itself as if it were a person with its own character, motivations, and life journey. It's the chart of the we. Liz Green, The Astrological Neptune and the Quest for Redemption, 1996.
A composite chart represents the energetic center of a relationship, created by taking the midpoints between two individuals' planetary positions. Unlike synastry, which compares two separate charts, the composite chart creates a single chart, a symbolic birth chart for the relationship itself. This chart is not about individual behavior, but about the shared entity that the relationship becomes. It reveals the emotional tone, purpose, and karmic structure that the two individuals co-create when they come together. It functions as a living system, reflecting how the relationship expresses itself in the world. Key composite aspects to examine. Sun aspects. Show the core identity and direction of the relationship. Indicates what the relationship is about and how it functions in the world. Hard aspects, example square to Saturn, may suggest external pressure or identity struggles. Soft aspects, trine to Jupiter, may point to ease and shared vitality. Moon aspects. Define the emotional rhythm, needs, and subconscious tone of the relationship. Tell us how the couple experiences emotional safety, security, and response. Strong moon aspects point to bonding at a deep level. Challenging aspects may show emotional instability or unconscious reactivity. Venus-Mars aspects. Reflect romantic chemistry, sexual energy, and mutual affection. These aspects show how desire is expressed and how affection is exchanged. A Venus square Mars may show tension between love and desire, while a Venus trine Mars suggests ease and romantic flow. Saturn and Pluto aspects. indicate depth, intensity, control dynamics, and long-term karmic work. Saturn may represent commitment or restriction. Pluto suggests transformation, power struggles, or regenerative potential. These aspects point to what must be taken seriously or to where transformation is inevitable. How to interpret the composite chart. Approach it as you would a natal chart, but speak in terms of we rather than you or they. Describe it as a shared system with its own emotional needs, spiritual lessons, and life direction. Pay attention to the angles, ascent, MC, as they show how the relationship appears to others in its public purpose.
The composite moon shows the emotional undertone of the relationship, how it feels on the inside. The composite sun shows its shared purpose or identity. Robert Hand, Planets in Composite, 1975. Aspects between Venus and Mars in the composite chart describe erotic tension or harmony. Pluto and Saturn show where power is negotiated and where permanence or control is sought. Stephen Forrest, Scammates Volume 2, 2005.
The composite chart brings the essence of a partnership into focus, giving insight into the shared soul that emerges when two individuals choose to walk together. It reveals the invisible architecture that holds a relationship in place, its challenges, strengths, and sacred design. Vocational aspects, career through planetary expression.
Astrology can illuminate not only what we can do in the world, but what we are meant to do, our vocation, our sacred work. Caroline Casey, Making the Gods Work for You, 1998.
Certain aspects between planets can offer profound insight to a person's natural career path, sense of vocation, and how they are meant to contribute to the world. While the 10th house and midheaven often receive primary attention in career readings, the aspects involving key planets, especially the Sun, Saturn, Mars, Mercury, and Jupiter, often reveal how one's internal drives and skills manifest in professional life. These aspects describe not only what someone does, but how they do it, with what energy, motivation, and capacity for growth. Interpreting them can clarify where talents lie, where ambition is directed, and where meaningful work may be found. Key vocational aspect archetypes. Sun, Saturn. Suggests maturity, responsibility, and discipline in career matters. These individuals often rise to leadership roles through consistent effort and reliability, common in professions involving management, public administration, engineering, law, or government work. Mercury, Jupiter. Indicates expansive thought, communication, and vision. Careers may involve teaching, writing, publishing, law, foreign affairs, or philosophical and spiritual education. Strong in those drawn to spread ideas or facilitating learning on large scales. Venus and Neptune. Reflect artistic, compassionate, or spiritually inspired work. Common in fields like visual arts, music, design, fashion, therapy, spiritual healing, or charitable service. This aspect often points to professions that elevate beauty or alleviate suffering. Mars, Uranus. Signifies bold action, innovation, and independent drive. Frequently found in technical, entrepreneurial, scientific, or emergency response professions. These individuals often reject routine, seeking roles that require speed, creativity, and autonomy. Interpreting aspects in the vocational context. Prioritize aspects involving angular houses, 1st, 10th, 7th, and 4th, or planets close to the midheaven. Examine Mars for action and drive, Saturn for mastery and responsibility, and Mercury for mental orientation and communication style. Pay attention to both hard aspects, which create ambition and resilience, and soft aspects, which show areas of natural strength and creative flow.
The Sun, in strong aspect to Saturn, often marks someone who seeks to earn respect through achievement. They tend to assume responsibility early and aspire to professional mastery. Stephen Arroyo, Astrology, Karma, and Transformation, 1978. The Mercury-Jupiter connection is archetypally the teacher, the philosopher, the broadcaster of thought. Jan Spiller and Karen McCoy, Spiritual Astrology, 1988.
Vocational aspects reveal how a person is naturally inclined to contribute their energy, intelligence, and creativity to the world. They point to more than just a job. They reflect one's calling, the expression of purpose through planetary function. In this way, astrology becomes a tool not just for understanding the self, but for guiding one toward meaningful work and service. Awakening aspects, catalysts for consciousness.
When the outer planets transit personal points, the personality is forced to evolve. These are rites of passage, painful or ecstatic, that strip away illusion and reveal a deeper self. Liz Green, The Outer Planets and Their Cycles, 1983.
Some planetary aspects act as turning points in spiritual development, activating profound inner shifts that restructure identity, perception, and purpose. These aspects, especially those involving outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, or the lunar nodes, often mark periods of spiritual awakening, increased self-awareness, or psychic reorientation. They don't just modify mood or circumstances, they recode the self. These aspects are typically experienced during key transits or progressions, and often correspond with crisis, breakthroughs, revelations, or inner dissolutions. They act as catalysts for conscious evolution, pushing the individual to outgrow old patterns and attune to more authentic or dharmic life path. Aspects that commonly signal awakening. Uranus to personal planets, Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, represents sudden insights, radical freedom, or shocking life turns, breaks stagnation and disrupts established structures, often forcing a redefinition of self, can awaken latent genius, higher mind activity, or a nonconformist path. Neptune aspects involve disillusion, surrender, and transcendent awareness. They can blur boundaries, dissolve ego constructs, or open psychic and creative sensitivities, often associated with spiritual longing, mysticism, or the feeling of being lost in order to find something greater. Pluto aspects mark intense psychological death and rebirth cycles, uncover buried trauma, confront the shadow, and force powerful inner transformations, frequently tied to empowerment, deep healing, and life restructuring. Transits to lunar nodes signal soul realignment, calling attention to the path of destiny, North Node, and the karmic past, South Node. Can activate a life pivot, spiritual mission, or reorientation towards deeper purpose. How to interpret awakening aspects. Look at transiting outer planets, making close contact within 1 to 2 degrees to natal personal planets or angles. Pay attention to progress charts, especially moon and ascendant movements, into new signs or making aspects to outer planets. Identify if a person is going through multiple awakening aspects simultaneously, which may mark a major life initiation or rite of passage.
Uranus cracks open the shell of the known. Its transits and aspects awaken the higher mind, often through shock or sudden insight. Aaron Sullivan, Uranus, Freedom from the Known, 1990. Neptune dissolves the boundaries of ego. Its touch can bring visionary states, spiritual longing, or the confusion that precedes clarity. Stephen Forrest, The Book of Neptune, 2016. Pluto's transits signal the underworld journey, death of the old self, confrontation with shadow, and eventual empowerment through rebirth. Jeff Green, Pluto, The Evolutionary Journey of the Soul, 1985. When transiting planets conjoin the lunar nodes, the individual is reminded of their path, past and future. These are moments when the soul realigns with its deeper purpose. Jan Spiller, Astrology for the Soul, 1997.
These aspects do not always bring immediate clarity. They often unfold as processes of unmaking and remaking, where confusion and intensity give way to vision and alignment. In readings, these configurations should be handled with care, empathy, and encouragement, as they mark thresholds into deeper layers of consciousness and self-recognition. Awakening aspects are less about fate and more about soul emergence. They do not simply predict change, they invite the individual to participate in transformation with awareness, courage, and faith. Generational aspects, collective karmic currents.
The great conjunctions of the outer planets are the deep breathings of the world's soul. They mark epochs in cultural and spiritual history and catalyze vast collective change. Richard Tarnas, Cosmos and Psyche, 2006.
Not all aspects operate at the personal level. Some arise from the interactions between slow-moving outer planets, forming long-lasting configurations that influence entire generations. These aspects reflect collective karmic themes, shaping the cultural atmosphere, global shifts, and mass consciousness of those born during their occurrence. Individuals born under major generational aspects carry the psychological imprint of these transits. Their lives are often tied to larger historical movements, and they may feel an innate connection to the societal upheavals, innovations, or transformations linked to their time of birth. These aspects do not only impact the outer world, they anchor collective energies within individual charts, becoming channels through which societal karma and evolutionary imperatives express themselves. Notable generational aspects and their signatures. Uranus-Pluto conjunction, 1965 to 1966. Symbol of revolution, rebellion, and the breakdown of old paradigms, marked the 1960s counterculture, civil rights movements, and social upheaval. Those born during this time often carry themes of radical transformation, activism, or systemic challenge. Neptune-Uranus conjunction, 1993. Brought together mysticism and technology, spirituality and science merged. Characterizes the digital native generation with intuitive intelligence and visionary ideals. Individuals may explore transpersonal awareness through media, AI, virtual reality, or esoteric science.
The Uranus-Pluto conjunction represents the Promethean fire of revolution, a time when archetypal forces of eruption and empowerment seek to dismantle oppressive structures. Richard Tarnas, Cosmos and Psyche, 2006.
Pluto-Saturn conjunction, 2020. Initiated a global period of collapse and restructuring, affecting government, health systems, and economics. Those born under this aspect may carry a sense of responsibility, intensity, or burden linked to rebuilding or transforming institutions. Reflects karmic themes of destruction and regeneration on a collective scale.
The alignment of Saturn and Pluto signals times of intense contraction and transformation. These are periods when civilizations face trials of endurance and are compelled to confront the limits of their structures. André Barbeau, Planetary Cycles, Mundane Astrology, and the Rhythm of History, 2014 translation.
How to work with generational aspects in readings. Place these aspects in context, identify which houses they fall in, and whether they aspect personal planets, as this will show how the collective theme becomes personally activated. Recognize that individuals with prominent generational aspects often serve as carriers of cultural evolution, consciously or unconsciously expressing the deeper needs of their time. In group dynamics or synastry, shared generational aspects can create instant familiarity as they reflect common worldviews or societal changes. Generational aspects are astrological signatures of the collective soul. They mark epochs in human consciousness and shape the destiny of those born within their field. To interpret them is to read the deeper rhythms of history as echoed through the birth charts of those who came to serve and reshape the world.